Did you know two ancient cultures, separated by oceans, might share a secret connection? Ethiopia and India, two lands steeped in myth and history, have more in common than you think. From shared spices to ancient texts and mysterious migrations, the evidence is almost too coincidental to ignore. What's the truth behind this strange bond? Let's unravel it. Ethiopia, the cradle of humanity, and India, the land of ancient wisdom. At first glance they seem worlds apart, but look closer, and a fascinating pattern begins to emerge. Could trade, migration, and even religion have linked these two civilizations thousands of years ago, or is it all just coincidence? Today we're diving deep into the mysterious connection between Ethiopia and India, a story of shared culture, unexpected parallels, and unanswered questions. History often feels like a puzzle, with pieces scattered across time and continents. While historians have connected many ancient civilizations, the relationship between Ethiopia and India remains a topic of intrigue. Ancient trade routes, cultural exchanges, and even genetic studies hint at a link, but the evidence isn't always straightforward. Did ancient sailors brave the Indian Ocean to connect these lands? And how do food, language, and religion play into this enigma? Let's piece together the clues. The trade connection: spices, silk, and the Indian Ocean. In ancient times, the Indian Ocean wasn't a barrier, it was a highway. Merchants from India and Arabia set sail to trade with Africa's eastern coast, bringing goods, ideas, and cultures. The Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, a Greek travelogue from the 1st century CE, describes bustling trade networks connecting the Indian subcontinent to the Red Sea and beyond. Ethiopian ports like Adulis became hubs for this exchange. What were they trading? Spices like black pepper and cinnamon from India, gold and ivory from Africa, and even textiles. But it wasn't just goods that traveled, it was also stories, traditions, and beliefs. Cultural parallels, shared stories, and symbols. Have you ever noticed the striking similarities between Indian and Ethiopian cuisine? Both feature lentils, flatbreads, and spiced stews. Injera, Ethiopia's iconic sourdough flatbread, might seem worlds apart from India's dosa, but their preparation methods hint at shared techniques. Then there are the linguistic similarities. The Ge'ez script of Ethiopia and some ancient Indian scripts like Brahmi share visual similarities that have intrigued scholars. While direct connections are debated, these resemblances fuel theories of ancient interactions. Religion, too, tells an interesting story. Hindu and Ethiopian Orthodox Christian traditions feature symbolic parallels. For example, both cultures emphasize sacred rivers, the Ganges in India and the Abay, or Blue Nile in Ethiopia. And while their religious practices differ, their shared reverence for water and nature stands out. The mystery of the city people. One of the most tangible connections between Ethiopia and India is the city community. Descendants of African migrants, the Sidis have lived in India for centuries, preserving elements of their African heritage while blending into Indian society. Genetic studies trace their origins to East Africa, including regions of modern-day Ethiopia. How did they arrive? Some were brought as slaves during ancient trade, while others came as sailors, soldiers, or merchants. Today, the city people keep this unique cultural blend alive, showcasing how migration shaped both lands. Ancient legends and myths. Both Ethiopia and India are lands of epic tales. Ethiopia's Kebra Nagast, a foundational text of Ethiopian Christianity, tells the story of the Queen of Sheba traveling to Jerusalem and returning with King Solomon's wisdom. But did you know that some Indian legends also reference distant lands to the west, hinting at interactions with African cultures? The Mahabharata, one of India's great epics, mentions a people called the Nishadas, often interpreted as dark-skinned and originating from distant lands. Could these references be echoes of ancient connections? Genetic evidence: a link in our DNA. Modern science adds another layer to this mystery. Genetic studies reveal a surprising connection between Ethiopians and certain populations in southern India. Both groups share markers that suggest ancient gene flow, possibly through migration or intermarriage. But here's where it gets tricky. Pinpointing when and how these exchanges happened is still up for debate. Was it during the height of Indian Ocean trade? Or does it date back even further to prehistoric migrations out of Africa? The more you look, the more the connection between Ethiopia and India feels undeniable. Trade routes, shared cuisines, linguistic echoes, and even DNA point to a bond that's deeper than chance. Yet so many questions remain unanswered. Were these interactions sporadic or sustained over centuries? And how much of what we see today is a remnant of that ancient relationship? History has a funny way of hiding in plain sight. The connection between Ethiopia and India might not be obvious at first glance, but when you dig deeper, the links are too compelling to ignore. From the bustling trade routes of the Indian Ocean to the enduring legacy of the city people, this story reminds us that our world has always been more interconnected than we think. Thanks for watching, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic in the comments below. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, subscribe for more incredible histories and untold stories.